Have you ever felt so alone in a crowded room that it seemed like you were watching life from behind a glass wall? What do you do when the weight of unspoken words suffocates you? When the people who should have been your safety net left you to fall? I suppose you might say, I live a decent life. On the surface, everything looks fine. I'm Sarah, mid-30s, an artist who paints not just because I love colors, but because it's the only way I know how to scream. My apartment is my sanctuary, though it's more of a museum of unfinished canvases and unsent letters. Bits of me scattered around trying to make sense of a past that clings like a shadow. Once, I tried writing a letter, a release of everything I'd kept locked away, but the words turned into jagged fragments, each sentence heavy with the kind of pain that doesn't easily wash away. The letter never reached anyone. It ends with a line that haunts me still. I am still here, but I am not living. To outsiders, I'm just another face, another name that blends into the noise of the city. But every brushstroke on the canvas is a battle with demons I can't ignore. My childhood was a silent storm of neglect, where love was just a word and warmth was a distant memory. Painting is my one refuge, where emotions spill onto the canvas in ways my mouth can never articulate. My apartment is filled with these testaments to my solitude, each one a chapter of my unspoken story. I wonder if anyone else feels this echo of emptiness, a void that seems insurmountable, leaving you drifting through each day, just existing. The memories rushed in like a tidal wave, pulling me under with their relentless force. Emma's voice on the phone had been the spark, igniting a blaze of emotions I'd long buried beneath layers of numbness. I was back there in that suffocating house where silence reigned supreme and love was a ghost we chased but never caught. I remember vividly the night I realized I was truly alone. I was 11, maybe 12, and it was Christmas Eve. The air was cold, biting sharply at my skin as I sat by the window, watching the world outside, vibrant with festive cheer. Inside, the house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that hums with tension hanging thick in the air. I'd hoped for something different that year, a kind word, a gentle touch, anything to break the monotony of neglect. But the gifts beneath the tree were merely obligations wrapped in shiny paper. They meant nothing, just as I meant nothing to them. The disappointment grew into a dull ache in my chest, a constant reminder of all I lacked. I reached out tentatively once, a shaky hand offering a drawing I'd made, hoping for a flicker of approval. My father barely glanced up from his newspaper, and my mother murmured something non-committal. In that moment, the realization settled in. I was as invisible to them as the dust gathering in forgotten corners. It was not an instant break, but a slow crack, spreading steadily with every indifference, every glance that slid over me as if I were a shadow. Physically, I felt numb, the kind of numbness that seeps into your bones and makes the world feel unreal. Emotionally, I was a storm, my insides churning with unspoken words and unshed tears. Psychologically, I started to understand the cruelty of hope and how its absence can leave a void so deep it echoes with despair. That night, after Emma's call, I looked at my paintings and saw them for what they truly were. Fragments of a soul trying desperately to scream in a world that had long stopped listening. The days blurred together like a watercolor left out in the rain, the colors bleeding into one another, leaving me with nothing but a muddied canvas of indistinguishable hours. I feel untethered, floating between moments, unable to anchor myself to any one emotion, because they all feel the same now, hollow and haunting. My mind is a storm of memories, each one a sharp fragment of what once was, tearing through my thoughts with a fury I cannot contain. I am assaulted by images of my own making, visions of a childhood that felt like walking through a fog-laden forest where shadows loomed larger than life. The quiet of our home wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the suffocating silence of things left unsaid, of love withheld. I find myself drifting back to those nights spent longing for a warmth that never came, a longing that now feels like an echo reverberating in the hollow chambers of my heart. Each brushstroke on my canvas is a scream stifled, a cry for help that I was never brave enough to voice. They're darker now, my paintings, swirls of black and gray that mirror the chaos swirling just beneath the surface of my skin. It's as though the very act of creating is pulling the darkness out of me, laying bare the ruin beneath the facade of normalcy. There's a part of me that recoils at the sight, at the truth of what I am and what I've become. The world beyond my apartment is a blur, a place I no longer belong. I move through it like a ghost, unseen and untouched, haunted by the weight of guilt that clings to me like a second skin. It whispers that I am to blame, that I carried the seeds of this destruction within me all along. I see Emma's face in every stranger I pass, hear her accusations in every silence, and it's exhausting, this constant battle between past and present. I am tired in a way that sleep cannot cure, a weariness that seeps into my bones and roots itself deep within. The question of my existence gnaws relentlessly at the edges of my consciousness, demanding answers I do not have. What is left for someone like me, trapped in this cycle of remembering and regretting? I try to grasp at the edges of hope, but it slips through my fingers like sand, leaving me staring into the abyss of my own making. And yet, somewhere beneath this turmoil, there is the faintest flicker of something, an ember of resolve that refuses to die, whispering that perhaps there is a way through the darkness. But for now, it is just a whisper, lost amidst the roar of memory and guilt. In the dim solitude of my apartment, I find myself staring at a canvas, its emptiness a reflection of the void inside. The echoes of silence are deafening, and I am haunted by memories that refuse to fade. The dream last night was vivid, a meeting with the child I once was, a fragile ghost of innocence lost beneath the weight of neglect. Her eyes, wide with questions unanswered, plead with me to understand, to find meaning where none exists. I wake with tears etching cold paths on my cheeks, the desire for closure pressing heavily upon my chest. Therapy is a labyrinth I tread warily, each session an excavation of buried sorrow and forgotten despair. Words falter as I attempt to articulate the shadows that have clung to my soul for so long. My past unfurls like a tapestry of pain. Yet there is solace in the act of writing. Every journal entry is a whisper of release, a cleansing of the wounds that time has failed to heal. It is here, in the quiet confessional of my mind, that I touch upon the notion of forgiveness, not as absolution, but as an offering of peace to the fractured pieces within. Reaching out to an online support group, I test the waters of vulnerability, sharing fragments of my story. There is comfort in the echoes of understanding, the realization that suffering is a shared human experience. In this digital embrace, I find strength in the confessions of others, a mosaic of resilience and hope binding us together. And so the fog begins to lift, revealing a path forward, however tenuous. I see now that forgiveness, both for Emma, who left, and for myself, who didn't fight, holds the key to liberation. It is a revelation as profound as it is terrifying, a call to confront the past, not with anger, but with compassion. As I extend the olive branch to Emma, my heart is a cacophony of fear and yearning, yet beneath it all, there is a flicker of resolve. I am ready to face the truth, ready to reclaim the fragments of a life interrupted by silence. And though I know there are no guarantees, the simple act of reaching out is a step toward healing, a moment of awakening where light begins to seep through the cracks. In the quiet aftermath, I find myself adrift in the echoes of what once was. The air feels heavier, laced with the remnants of words spoken in pain and longing. Emma and I, two fragile souls, finally met the ghosts that had haunted our hearts. It was not closure, not a cure, but a beginning. The wounds, still tender, remind us of their presence, like shadows cast by the dim light of understanding. I carry my trauma like a worn cloak, familiar but burdensome. Yet, there is a strange comfort in its weight, as if acknowledging it gives me the strength to stand beneath it. I know now that it does not define me. It is a chapter, not the entire story. The loneliness hasn't vanished, but it has softened. In the space where despair once reigned, I plant seeds of hope. My canvas breathes anew, colors unfurling like whispers of resilience. Each stroke a testament to survival, not just of the body, but of the spirit. I paint for the woman I was, the child I lost, and the peace I seek. I write to her, my younger self, offering the kindness she was denied, forgiving her innocence for breaking. Reconciliation with Emma is not a cure-all. It's a fragile bridge spanning a chasm of years and tears. But every step across it is a victory. We are both still here, damaged yet determined. In this fragile state, we learn to coexist with our past, embracing its lessons, not its chains. Healing, imperfect and slow, feels less like an end and more like a chance to begin again. In the hush of morning's light, Sarah sits before a blank canvas, the room infused with the soft glow of dawn. The silent embrace of solitude feels different now, not as a burden, but as a sanctuary. Her heart, once a tumultuous sea of unarticulated pain, now drums to a mellower rhythm. As her brush touches the canvas, she pauses, reflecting on the journey that has led her here. In her mind's eye, she sees the faces of those she once believed to be unmovable mountains in her life's landscape, now softened into gentle hills by the winds of forgiveness. In the quiet corners of her soul, acceptance has taken root. The memories, the echoes of her past, no longer haunt her with bitter resonance, but rather sing a sorrowful lullaby that lulls her into understanding. The realization that pain, when embraced, becomes part of the fabric of one's being does not scare her anymore. It feels like home. In this fragile acceptance, she finds a freedom unknown to her before, a freedom to redefine herself beyond the echoes of her past wounds. As the painting evolves under her steady hand, each stroke becomes a whispered promise to her younger self, a reassurance that survival is not just a distant shore, but a future rich with possibilities. She sees the faces of an old torn family reimagined with warmer tones, shaded with the compassion she finally extends to herself. Even the spaces between the colors are filled with a serenity that speaks of peace. She understands now that life is a delicate mosaic of broken pieces, and sometimes those fractures let the most beautiful light in. Deep within, Sarah senses that the journey is not over, for healing is a gentle spiral. Some days will be heavy with the weight of yesteryears, But with this quiet understanding, she knows they don't define her. In this moment of soft intimacy with her own heart, she writes one last letter, a gentle unburdening to her past self, an olive branch extending into her future. The letter is not a goodbye, but a hello to the possibility of becoming whole amidst the broken pieces. In this intimate reconciliation, she finds her own quiet poetry, a symphony of muted understanding. Have you ever been through something you've never told anyone about? Something that still lives in your chest? If you feel like sharing it, we're here. Drop your story in the comments, even just a part of it. Every week, we turn one of your stories into a cinematic video just like this one. This is a safe space. Your voice matters. You're not alone.